I have today signed an executive order providing for the establishment of a Peace Corps on a temporary pilot basis. I'm also sending to Congress a message proposing authorization of a permanent Peace Corps. This Corps will be a pool of trained men and women sent overseas by the United States government or through private institutions and organizations to help foreign countries meet their urgent needs for skilled manpower. It will not be easy. None of the men and women will be paid a salary. They will live at the same level as the citizens of the country which they're sent to, doing the same work, eating the same food, speaking the same language.
Well, I think certainly the biggest challenge was just getting used to a whole new way of doing things. You know, I came from a very high-pressure job where we're always on deadline and we have to get it done right now, and then we got to move on to the next newscast. And things just don't work that way in Tonga, and probably not in a lot of developing countries. So I definitely have to get used to a much slower pace, to kind of like be a lot more patient than perhaps I used to be in the past. And then also learning, a whole new culture and a whole new way of doing things. The culture is very different here. There are very different roles for men than there are for women. The men tend to work in the bush or work in the farm growing crops. At night, the men go together and they drink kava. During the day, the women will weave all together. When they go to church on Sunday, the men and the women sit on separate sides of the church. You never see a Tongan like holding hands or even actually walking very often with a member of the opposite sex. I mean, the gender lines are very separated from what we're used to in the States. And women are definitely treated differently here than they are in other parts of the world.
The women tend to always take a back role, because in the Tongan culture, the men are always the ones who speak up in the front, who come to the bank and ask for a loan. But when you go to the business, who's keeping the records? Who's banking the money? Who's planning the business and knows what the business can afford and where, whether it's time to diversify, the timing for the business, it would be the woman.
So that took a little bit of getting used to. Certainly the language. I've never learned a foreign language before, so it was difficult for me to not only have to learn a foreign language, but have to learn how to learn a foreign language. And I finally picked up enough where I could get by, where I can generally understand at least the gist of what someone is saying to me. I'm not quite as good at speaking it as I am understanding it, but in my job at the bank, it was really important to be able to understand what people were saying. There's one business owner in particular that I feel really good about. He was at his wit's end. He thought he was going to have to close his small store. He had a $20,000 overdraft at one of the local banks, and he couldn't afford to buy any more supplies. He was giving away all of his food to his family and friends. He was smoking tons of cigarettes just for his own use, and he was even lending money to people in his village. And I went in and I tried to explain good business practices to him. I told him he had to start keeping track of what he was spending. I showed him how he could pay down his overdraft. And he actually listened to everything I told him. And within the course of a month, he had started to turn his business around. A couple months later, he had paid down that overdraft, and he went out and he was able to finance a taxi. And so now, in addition to a successful business, he now has a taxi that he runs, which is bringing in additional money. And he's a real success story. And I really give him a lot of the credit, because he just didn't know exactly what needed to be done, because there really is no business education in Tonga. And being able to go in and just tell him some really basic, simple things, and he took it and turned his business around. It was very rewarding to see.
Steve is like He's like a brother to me.
He looks out for me. Anything he can do to help me, he really does.
We used to go out fishing together with Steve sometimes. I think I'm more experienced in fishing than Steve.
Well, this time I went out, and it was Fuka and another Tongan and myself on this little boat. And we were out, put my hook in the water, and I caught the first fish of the day. Well, as it turns out, that was the only fish that we caught. Neither Fuka or the other Tongan, both who have been fishing all of their life, caught any fish that day.
But one time I didn't get a fish. Steve got one, like this. Sometimes I go out fishing, bring some fish for him.
He's the kind of person that you feel really, really lucky to have as a friend in Tonga. And I think that my experience here has been so much better because of getting to know Fuka. I have, actually, by Peace Corps standards, a pretty nice house. It's 2-bedroom with bathroom, big living area with 2 couches in it, and you know, also a really nice-sized kitchen. This is my dog Saltia right here. I got Saltia from Justin, another volunteer who left when he completed his service, and then Saltia became mine. He's a little bit hyper, but actually a pretty good dog. Doesn't always do what I want him to. Swimming with whales. It was pretty amazing to get down into the water and see these giant creatures that were just, it's really humbling to get in there and you see these things that are just like so huge and you're in their world, and I really can't explain it. Certainly Tonga is going to be a part of the rest of my life. The people that I've met here, the things that I've learned, so many of the things I admire about the Tongans I hope that I can carry with me. The commitment that they have to their family and to their friends, the way that you know, they're very generous in giving, and you know, they will always offer you food, and they give you the shirt off your back, and they'll give you the shirt off of someone else's back if you ask. I mean, it's just, they're just an amazing people, and I hope that you know, maybe I can be as generous as some of the Tongans are, and I think more patient. Hopefully I'll be a lot more patient when I get back.
Want to say thank you to his family for encouraging Steve to come to Tonga and work with us. We really miss him, and we wish him all the best.
I don't think I would trade it for anything, and I would certainly do it again.